So hello, this is Sarah Soiledplant and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about a progress update for my low variegation Monstera Albo. This Monstera Albo is one that I bought in April of 2021, about 11 months ago from the date of recording this. And I bought it from Ted's greenhouse. It was a very low variegation Albo Monstera. And I bought it with the intention of chopping and propping it and basically seeing if I can pull more variegation out of the plant. The plant that I bought had 4 leaves on it and was sold to me for $85. Fast forward to September of 2021, which is about 7 months ago, and the plant grew from 4 leaves up to 7 leaves. And at that point, I decided to chop it into different pieces and basically start to propagate from those pieces. I allowed those cuttings to root, and then by the end of November, which is about 4 months ago, I ended up potting them up into pots in soil and then let them grow from there. And I will say, from when I bought the plant and brought it home to when I chopped it, I did, have it in a corner that didn't get the best light in the world. So the new leaves that came out ended up not having the greatest variegation in the world. It wasn't pulling more variegation. And I knew that, but it wasn't getting the best light. And I ended up moving into my new house. I have better setups. I have better windows, better lighting situations. And so I'm using that to kind of help my cause. But since I moved here and chopped it, let it root, put it into a soil, all that stuff, it has been fall and winter, which is not optimal for light, which you need for more variegation. So not to temper your expectations, but keep that in mind when looking at the growth on these plants. So let's start with the base of the plant. When I took my cuttings, it only had this leaf, and then the original pot it came in, it already had the benefit of having roots already, so it did a lot better with growth, and I got 4 leaves since November. So in the last 4 months, I basically got a leaf a month. And despite it being winter, I actually got a decent amount more variegation. You can see from this starting leaf that it had pretty much no variegation. This is, a defect on the leaf, but this little ear up here is just the slightest amount of variegation, and then it's got a little speckling down here at the bottom. So not a ton on the base of the plant. And then this is the first leaf that grew. It already had a little bit more variegation than when I started with. Nothing to write home about. And the back looks about the same. And then the leaf following that, so the second leaf it grew, so the whole plant has 5 leaves, but it grew 4 in the last 4 months, if that makes any sense. So this is leaf number 3, second that I grew, and it's got hardly anything, right? But it does have a little bit on the back of the leaf there, so, not great. But the leaf after that, we're starting to see a little more progress. So this one has a good amount of variegation on maybe 1/5 of the leaf, and the back looks about the same. And this one has a little bit more than even that, almost even down here. So it's maybe on 1/4 to 1/3 of the leaf. So that doesn't seem impressive, but considering where we started with, where it had like a splotch on one corner of this leaf, that is an improvement, and it was over the winter. So I'm considering this, a little bit successful, at least mildly successful. Next, I'll go on to one of my bigger disappointments, which is this one. This cutting was my most promising because it had the most variegation. It had nice, solid white pieces. Granted, it was only on one little section of the leaf. There's even a little bit of variegation down here, but I had the most hope for this one, and this one produced this leaf, which is not great. Not the best. Granted, it still can grow, and maybe it's growing slowly and kind of dwarfing the leaf a little bit because of the amount of variegation. I don't know, but either way, this is what it came up with, and that is a little disappointing. But I'm gonna still keep, doing my thing, letting it go, and seeing how the summer treats it. Next, we'll move on to this one, which has a very similar story. The bottom got chewed on by Ash, my cat, and this is a very old injury, but it didn't have a ton of variegation on it to begin with. And then we move on to this one. It has like no variegation on it whatsoever. It's got little tiny, like ever so slight things that probably wouldn't even pick up on camera if I tried. But for all intents and purposes, I would say that this one is not variegated pretty much at all. So not doing great on this cutting. Next, we'll move on to one that I would consider a success story. This is the bottom leaf that it had when I took the cutting. It has a little bit of variegation up here, a little bit on the other side. but really not much to speak of. And then I got this amount of variegation on the leaf, which is a little bit improved, but the impressive bit is on the back. The back, there is a good amount of variegation on the back, but of course the front is where the money is, so, you know, temper expectations. And then I just got this one, which has a lovely little ear on the front, and I'm very happy with that. It's already improving, even with the conditions I'm giving it. And the little leaves, they just look in the front and they're so cute, and I'm so happy with it. And so this one I'm actually pretty happy with, considering this is winter growth and, you know, the light conditions I'm giving it, and the starting point was so bad. So I'm pretty happy with the progress of this one. And then the last one I have is this one. It had pretty much no variegation, a little bit there, little speckles on the back, nothing to write home about. And then look at this one. It doesn't have much of anything, little tiny amount in the center, but this was actually the first leaf it produced, is this little thing with like no real anything to speak of. It's barely a Monstera. Like, look at that. It looks like a pothos leaf or something. But that was, of course, when it was, you know, growing as it was rooting in water, so it was not a good time for this one. So I'd say for this one, it's a little stagnant, you know, not the best. So basically, out of the 5 cutting plants that I have, I would say 2 of them are improving and 3 of them are not. So I don't know if that's a good take rate or what I should expect. I did have a 6th cutting that was in water that I wasn't able to pot up because I ran out of soil, and I did end up selling that one. Currently I have all of these cuttings in a western facing window. I do have a south facing window in my living room that is right here, and it gives off good light during the day. So part of me is thinking about moving it into a south facing window. I was a little worried about burning because, you know, when you have white variegation, you got to worry about, you know, the sun doing some damage to it. So that's why I put it in a western facing window. So I'd be able to, you know, if you have any advice for me, if you think that, you know, a western facing window is the right approach and keep doing that, or if I should switch to a south facing window, please let me know. I will take any input you have if you are someone who has some experience with raising Monstera albos and pulling variegation out of plants at all, really. I also have my IKEA cabinets, which are kind of full at the moment, but I could make room for 1 or 2 of these, so I could also try that, at least with some of the more successful ones. Maybe that would be a good approach. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do at this point, but one thing I do know for sure is I am not going to chop and prop these at all spring and summer. So the plan is I am going to let these grow out and kind of do what they do, see how they grow, and if I can pull more variegation out. Because basically, if your plant is in a good, healthy state where it can grow and put some, you know, optimize some of its energy for variegation, summer and spring is the time to do it, and you don't want to have to chop and prop your plants at that time if you're trying to pull variegation out. At least I figure. You know, these are Monsteras. At, you know, the base of it, Monsteras do grow fairly easily and they don't generally rot on you. And I didn't have any of my cuttings rot on me in this process. They all did very well, transferred to soil very easily. So the approach I'm going to take is I'm going to do a chop and prop marathon basically in the fall, and hopefully be able to pot it up and have it sort of established into a plant by early spring, so that every year, as you know, I keep doing this and keep trying it, hopefully it will, you know, produce the best results. That's always the goal. I hope you enjoyed this progress video. I will continue giving you updates sort of as, you know, events happen. I probably won't show you every chopping and propping every time that happens, but I will show you progress on kind of how the variegation is going. I think that this is, you know, mildly successful so far. I wouldn't say it's like a rounding success, like a hurrah, you know, I should declare my results anywhere. But I do think that, you know, if 2 out of the 5 are doing better, I'd say that's a success, especially at the rate Monsteras grow, so I'm pretty happy with it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!